I was scrolling through my feed this morning, and the algorithm has clearly decided I need to optimize my existence.
Oh, no.
I'm getting hit with these videos of guys in dark rooms staring at 6 monitors with, like, some dark synthwave music playing, talking about escaping the Matrix.
Right. You stumbled into the grindset corner of the internet. It is a very specific, very moody place.
It is. And for the longest time, the internet was obsessed with this idea of the alpha male, the loud, chest-beating leader of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
But lately, I'm seeing a shift. The algorithm isn't telling me to be the alpha anymore. It's telling me to be the sigma.
The lone wolf.
Right, the lone wolf, the mysterious stranger who's, too cool for the whole hierarchy. And honestly, on the surface, it sounds kind of appealing.
Oh, it's an incredibly seductive narrative.
Who doesn't want to be the mysterious guy who doesn't need anyone's approval and just, gets things done?
It combines that sort of rebel cool with a sense of superiority. But today, we're going to ruin it.
Well, that's why we're here. We are the bubble burster.
We are. We're diving into this really biting, fascinating article by Ryan Collison from Money Sex Nerd.
Okay.
As part of his larger series, Toxic Masculinity in 2026. And the headline for this piece is it's a masterclass in grabbing your attention. It's called Sigma Male is Just Batman Without the Bat.
Batman without the bat. That really paints a picture. Yeah. And it immediately signals where we're going with this.
It does. The mission of this deep dive is to unpack Collison's argument, which is essentially that this whole Sigma label isn't actually a new personality type.
Okay.
It's a rebranding exercise. He argues it's a way of repackaging social isolation and failure as a strategic choice.
So we're saying that guys are taking I don't have friends and rebranding it as I'm a lone wolf strategist.
Essentially, yes, but it goes deeper. We're going to look at the bad science that underpins the whole concept, the psychology of why people do it, the cope, as the internet calls it, and why this specific mindset is actually, dangerous.
Okay, before we get to the danger and the psychology, we have to lay out the map. I feel like most people know alpha and beta vaguely, but the source lays out a specific taxonomy here.
Yeah, whole system.
How does the sigma fit into this, let's call it a manosphere ecosystem?
So, according to the source, this worldview relies on a very rigid, pyramid-shaped hierarchy. It's almost feudal. At the very top, you have the alpha.
The CEO.
The quarterback.
The guy who talks the loudest at the bar.
The guy who orders for the table without asking anyone else.
Exactly. In this framework, he commands the room, he gets the resources, he gets the women. He is the winner of the game. He sits on the throne.
Okay, and if there's a winner, there have to be losers.
Right. And below him, in this framework, is the beta. Now, in the online discourse, beta is basically a slur. It represents the follower.
The orbiter.
The orbiter, the guy who plays by the rules but gets none of the rewards. The source describes the beta position as one defined by a total lack of agency. That sounds miserable. So I can see why, if you feel like you aren't the alpha, if you aren't the CEO, you're terrified of being labeled the beta.
Exactly. And this is the crucial friction point. Most men aren't the CEO or the quarterback. I mean, mathematically, most people are average.
Right.
So if the only options are king or servant, that creates a massive amount of anxiety. You feel like you're losing just by existing. Enter.
The sigma, the third door.
The third door. The sigma is pitched as the outside option. The theory claims that a sigma is equal in value and capability to the alpha. He could lead if he wanted to, but he rejects the hierarchy entirely. He steps off the pyramid.
See, that's the part that hooks people. It reframes the whole situation. You aren't losing the game. You're too smart to play it.
You're Neo-unplugging from the Matrix. Precisely. The grindset warrior. He's not chasing status. He's building an empire in solitude. But Collison, our author, stops us right here and calls this entire framework astrology for men who think they're too rational for astrology.
That is a scathing line. But is it fair? I mean, astrology is about stars determining your fate. This feels more like social strategy.
The comparison holds up because it's about taking complex, fluid human behaviors and just flattening them into these rigid 2D caricatures. I mean, think about your own life for a second. Are you an alpha or a beta?
Well, neither. Or both. Like, if I'm leading a project at work, I guess I'm alpha in that moment. But if I'm at a dinner party and I don't know anyone, I'm probably quieter.
Of course. Leadership isn't a genetic mutation or a zodiac sign. It's situational. You adapt. But the Sigma framework tries to tell you that you are a specific type of character class in a video game.
And your stats are locked in.
They're locked in. And the source points out that the foundation of this entire alpha-beta theory, the very bedrock of it, is built on sand.
You mean the wolves?
I mean the wolves.
Hmm.
We have to talk about the wolves.
I've heard rumors about this, but I never really looked into it. The alpha wolf isn't real?
It is one of the most persistent myths in science. The term came from a researcher back in the 1940s. They observed wolves in captivity fighting for dominance.
Okay, so they saw it happen.
They saw it happen in captivity. That's the key. Years later, when they actually studied wolves in the wild, they realized they had it all wrong. In the wild, a wolf pack is just a family.
A family.
Just a mom, a dad, and their puppies.
Yeah.
The alpha is just the dad. The beta is usually an older sibling helping out. They don't fight for dominance because,
Okay.
well, do you fight your dad for dominance at the dinner table?
Only over the last slice of pizza, and even then I usually lose.
Right. But the hierarchy is based on care and age, not aggression.
Yeah.
The aggressive dominance hierarchy only happened because the original studies were on unrelated wolves forced to live together in a small cage.
So the behavior we base our entire concept of masculine hierarchy on is actually just the behavior of stressed out prisoners.
Exactly. The source puts it brutally. Basing your personality on alpha dynamics is basically role-playing as a confused captive zoo animal. And the researcher, David Mack, he actually spent years trying to get his publisher to stop printing his old book because he knew it was wrong. But the idea had already taken root.
Okay, so the biology is fake, but stories are powerful even if they aren't true. And the source argues the Sigma story is basically the story of Batman.
Yes. Batman is the patron saint of the Sigma male. Think about the archetype. He's a billionaire, a genius. He operates alone in a cave. He doesn't answer to anyone.
Right. He is the ultimate example of operating outside the hierarchy while still being the most capable guy in the room.
It's a cool image. I get why guys want to be Batman. He's got the car, the gadgets.
The brooding mystique.
We all want to be Batman. But Collison argues that the Sigma community fundamentally misunderstands why Batman is the way he is. He breaks it down into 3 reality checks. The first is about trauma.
Trauma.
Batman didn't read a philosophy book and decide, solitude seems efficient. He watched his parents get murdered. His solitude isn't a strategic advantage, it's a pathology. He is broken.
So it's not a choice.
It's not a choice. As the source says, the solitude isn't philosophy, it's scar tissue.
That puts a very different spin on it. Aspiring to be Batman is aspiring to be so traumatized you can't form human connections.
Basically. But the second point is even more practical, and I think this is the one people always forget about the lone wolf life. Batman isn't actually alone.
You're talking about Alfred.
You cannot have Batman without Alfred. Alfred is the ultimate enabler. He cooks, he stitches up wounds, he manages the schedule, he's the emotional anchor.
He maintains the mansion. If Batman had to do his own laundry and go grocery shopping, he wouldn't have time to fight crime.
He'd just be a tired guy with a weird hobby.
Exactly.
Exactly. The source argues that real-life Sigmas, these guys posting from their basements about not needing anyone, they rarely have an Alfred.
They don't have that support system.
None. They're just isolated. They're sitting in the cave, but the cave is messy and the fridge is empty.
And without an Alfred, the cave gets pretty lonely fast.
And that leads to the third and maybe the harshest point, the competence gap. The article says, Batman is alone while being extraordinary.
Olympian, super genius, billionaire.
Right. His solitude is compensated for by the fact that he brings unlimited value to the table. He can afford to be weird because he saves the city.
I think I see where this is going. The source is implying that your average internet commentator might not be a billionaire ninja.
The line from the article is just devastating. Collison writes, the Sigma male wants Batman's aesthetic without Batman's competence. He wants the lone wolf identity without the extraordinary abilities that make lone wolfing viable.
The costume without the competence, that stings.
It's cosplay. And the conclusion is blunt. You're not Batman. You're just a guy who stays home.
Okay, that strips the glamour away completely. But this leads to the big question. If it's fake biology and a misunderstood fantasy, why is it so popular? What is the utility of calling yourself a Sigma?
This is where we get into the psychological core of the deep dive. The source describes the Sigma identity as a sophisticated cope.
Define cope for me in this context. I see it used as an insult online, but what does it mean psychologically?
In psychology, a coping mechanism is just a strategy we use to deal with stress. The source argues the Sigma framework allows men to take their social struggles, which are painful, and rebrand them as choices.
It transforms the shame of exclusion
into the pride of independence.
Can we walk through what that reframing sounds like?
Sure. The source gives a kind of translation guide. Take the statement, I struggle to make friends. That hurts to say. It feels like a failure.
Yeah.
But if you apply the sigma filter, it becomes, I prefer solitude because most people are boring.
So it protects the ego, it turns the bug into a feature.
Exactly. I'm awkward around women becomes, I'm not interested in their mind games. People at work find me abrasive becomes, I'm too real for corporate politics.
It flips the script. Instead of being at the bottom of the social ladder, you're suddenly looking down on everyone else for being, what, sheep?
Right. It takes the shame of exclusion and performs a sort of alchemy. The source says it allows a man to feel like he is transcending the game, when in reality he's just failing to play it.
But isn't that helpful? I mean, if a guy is feeling depressed about being lonely, isn't it better for him to feel proud? Like, fake it till you make it.
That's the tricky part. It feels better in the short term. It's a painkiller. But the source calls it a trap.
Why is it a trap?
Because if you believe the lie, you never fix the problem. If you convince yourself that your lack of social skills is actually a sign of your superiority, why would you ever try to learn social skills?
And don't go to the doctor for a disease you think is a superpower.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It makes the condition unfalsifiable. If you go to a party and people reject you, a normal person might think, maybe I should work on my conversational skills.
But the sigma thinks.
The self-identified sigma thinks, see, this proves I'm too advanced for these people. It's a closed loop that locks you in isolation.
And that isolation brings us to the grind set. This monk mode guys disappearing to build their businesses, ignoring friends. Is that part of the trap too? Because hard work is good.
Hard work is great. Focus is great.
Yeah.
But the source argues that for the sigma, the grind set is often just avoidance dressed up as ambition.
How so?
It asks, why learn to read social cues when you're focused on your mission? It frames basic human connection as a distraction, as beta shit, to use their term.
Yeah.
But here is where the source drops the smoking comparison.
Smoking.
Yes. Collison cites the mountains of research showing that humans are, well, we're obligate social animals. Loneliness triggers the same stress responses in the body as physical pain.
I've heard this.
And long-term isolation has the same mortality risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Whoa. So you can grind for 10 years, make $1 million, and die early because your cortisol levels were through the roof the whole time.
You can't transcend your biology. You can only defer the cost. And as the source says, eventually the bill comes due.
There was another tool in the article that I thought was brilliant for spotting this. The gender-flipped test.
Oh, I love this. It really exposes our biases.
The source asks us to imagine a woman posting the kind of things Sigmas post. Imagine a woman on TikTok saying, I don't need friends. I have my craft. Men can't handle my independence.
If you saw that, what is your immediate gut reaction? Be honest.
Honestly, my first thought is, who hurt you? Or, she sounds really lonely and defensive. I wouldn't think, wow, what a cool, mysterious warrior.
Exactly. We would immediately identify it as a rationalization. She's lonely and she's trying to spin it so it doesn't hurt.
But when a guy says it.
When a guy says it, we nod and say, respect, he's on his grind.
Yeah.
The source argues that the logic is exactly the same. The Sigma male is just a guy who couldn't figure out human connection and decided to blame the rest of the species.
That is a hard mirror to look into. It really highlights how we market male loneliness differently. So if we strip away the Batman costume and we admit the grind set might just be loneliness, where does that leave us? What is the alternative?
No, absolutely not. And this is the most important distinction in the deep dive. The source clarifies what healthy independence actually looks like.
So what is it?
It's about agency. The difference between solitude and isolation is choice.
Can you unpack that?
A genuinely independent person has friends. They have an Alfred. They can navigate a dinner party.
Yeah.
But they might choose to stay home on a Friday night because they enjoy their own company.
So if you stay home because you want to, that's solitude. If you stay home because you're afraid of the party or because nobody invited you,
that's isolation. Exactly. Healthy independence doesn't need a label. It doesn't need to post memes about how it is operating outside the hierarchy. It just lives.
Right. If you have to constantly announce how much you don't need people.
You probably really, really need people. It's the paradox of I don't care. If you have to shout, I don't care, you obviously care a lot.
So for the listener who might be realizing, uh-oh, I relate a little too much to these Sigma memes, what does the source say is the end game? Where does this go?
The source suggests there are two paths. Path one is growing out of it. Ideally, this is just a phase for young men.
It was just a phase, Pat.
Yes. They eventually develop social skills, they find their people, and they look back on their Sigma phase the same way they look back on a bad haircut from high school.
I can't believe I thought I was Batman. I can't believe I bought that trench coat.
I can't believe I posted that quote about wolves. But the second path is the dangerous one, the path of aging into it.
What does that look like?
That's the 40-year-old who is still explaining to anyone who will listen why his loneliness is actually a deep philosophical stance. By that point, the grind set usually hasn't paid off, and the lack of a support system becomes a crisis.
You're alone, you're older, and you haven't built the skills to fix it.
Right. You've built a fortress to keep people out, and now you realize you're locked inside.
It's a sobering picture. It really transforms the image of the Sigma from a cool action hero into something much more tragic.
It does. And I think that's why this deep dive is important. We aren't mocking the guys who feel this way. The source makes it clear. The pain is real. Feeling excluded sucks.
Yeah. The Sigma narrative is a painkiller. It stops the hurting.
But it prevents the healing. That's the takeaway. It stops you from doing the difficult, awkward work of learning how to connect with other human beings.
So, to bring this all together, the Sigma male is a myth. The biology is bad science from the 40s. The psychology is a defense mechanism. And the Batman roleplay is missing the most important part of Batman.
The butler. Don't forget the butler.
It challenges us to look at our own independence.
Yeah.
Are we standing alone because we're strong or because we're hiding?
The source leaves us with one final provocative thought that I think answers that perfectly.
Let's hear it.
If you describe yourself as operating outside the hierarchy, you need to ask yourself a brutally honest question. Are you truly above the hierarchy, or are you just not winning at it?
That is a question that requires a long look in the mirror.
The answer is usually the second one. Yeah. But, and this is the hopeful part, knowing that is the first step to actually winning. Not at the hierarchy game, but at the human connection game.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Whether you're an extrovert, an introvert, or just a guy trying to figure it out, remember, connection is a skill, not a weakness.
And seriously, call a friend today. Even Batman needs Alfred.
Definitely call a friend. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.